Your favorite toy truck nerds are back. Welcome to That Scale RC Show.
Travis can't get through the intro without laughing.
I was
We
gonna
need to
say,
get a new one. It's almost time for a new one.
like Travis doesn't join us on the last one, and now he like gets to see it again and can't keep it together.
We don't record enough for me to get used to it, so it's like it always go. Well, the funny part is it's like a tale of two halves, because I'll get to the middle, like, and I'm fine, but then it's right where it's like really like kicks into gear that like I lose it every time.
The good news is at least the volume's been like fixed, and now it's not so like ear piercing.
That is true. Yeah.
I think that's the recording software, because there's a thing where it like equalizes all the mics and stuff. So I think it's probably just gotten better over time.
Sure.
Okay.
Makes
Well,
sense.
anyways, welcome to episode 131. I'm one of your hosts, Adam, along with Jay and Travis. And what's up, guys?
Yo.
Not much. How's it going?
Oh, another day. We're hitting that weird weather. I don't know how it is for you guys. Yeah, we're hitting that weird weather where in the morning it's like 40s, 42-ish, and then by lunchtime it's like 71, 72, and you're like dying. And then 5 o'clock-ish it starts, dropping off again. So
we've been about the same. Yeah, I think we've only been getting as high as like mid 60s, but I mean it's been unbelievably nice out. So
but you guys just got rocked by some big old snowstorm not too long ago.
No, it wasn't that bad. People are just it got bad for some areas. The pass was pretty bad this last weekend, but we haven't gotten more than like a couple inches at a time at best. And the worst part here has just been that it's been so damn cold. Like it's just been single digits or negatives for the last couple of weeks. So this was definitely refreshing.
Or maybe that's what.
Yeah. So because we just get cold spurts here. But snow has actually been okay this year. We still got some time left, but it's been nice to see sun. Been loving it.
It was sunny today here for the first time. It's been like dumping rain for the last week, so this was kind of nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Adam hasn't finished building anything. I haven't finished building anything. Travis hasn't finished building anything.
I haven't started building
anything. Don't really have anything to update. Everything I'm doing is like in process right now, so it's like nothing very exciting to talk about.
Yeah,
on my front at least.
Yeah, I've collected more parts. My links finally showed up. So I'm almost to the point where I can start actually assembling mine, but I'm trying to finish Michelle's dad's just so it's done and it's out of my hair. His is also a little more straightforward than mine, so at least I can follow along with some of the guys that have put the DMG chassis together. Mine's like a one-off, so there's gonna be a lot of fitment issues and trying to make sure everything works right. But so that's pretty much it. Like I said, my parts pile just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I just got to start putting everything together.
Yeah.
Feel that.
I need to just finish something. I've got like 3 or 4 different things. I think 4 going on right now, like builds. So got like 2 rally cars I'm working on, little tiny Enduro 12 Samurai, and a couple bodies too. Yeah, I don't know, too much.
Yeah,
way too much.
If you actually wanted to count all the rigs that I still have never really finished, I probably have like 6 or 7 open builds. Might be a little stretch, but that's probably a realistic number.
There's nothing wrong with that. Projects are good.
Yeah, well, some of them you just kind of like, I don't know. Like I got the replica, the 94, the square body, or not square body, the OBS Chevy. the one that's supposed to be like my 94. That one's another one that's just sitting in a lot of parts. Never, I mean, the Capra heavy Chevy one, that one's kind of done. There's still some things I'd like to do to it, but for the most part, it's done. I started collecting parts to do a pro mod, so I think I'm turning the yellow Blazer into a pro mod, which means I need to weld a few more bars to it. And then what else? Technically, I got Michelle's Jeep that I never finished. I kind of like took it apart and then never put it back together because her body was falling apart. So I got a new Jeep body and then got the Knights Custom hood conversion, so that way it would look just like hers.
Nice.
So there's technically that rig. I'm trying to think of what else. Maybe I lied. Maybe there's only like 3 or 4. It felt like there was a lot more. I mean, I never really finished all the lights on the SCX6. So I guess you can include that into the build list, but and then Michelle's dad's buggy build. So yeah.
I really want to build one. Do you follow Club 42 at all on Instagram?
Yes.
Oh, you see his new buggy?
He has a real one, right?
Yeah, Club 42. He does like actual WeRock stuff.
Yeah.
Like last year he had a Jesse Haynes buggy, and I think he runs like Milestar tires and stuff. Like neat looking rig, but this year I guess he's got something different, and it's just gnarly looking. Like it's got all kinds of ground clearance, and it's got center, like a triangulated center bar set up on the cage and stuff, which you don't see a lot of on a lot of the WeRock buggies and stuff. They're usually, kind of a square opening area to look out of. So it's, yeah, his new buggy is wild looking. I was checking it out. Like, man, if I was going to build one, that's probably the one I would want to do. I
remember seeing that come across my Instagram feed, which actually threw me for a loop because I was like, at first I thought it was like an RC, company. And then all of a sudden, like I saw that and I was like, is that one of those, like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, like where you follow something for so long and then they're like, either they sell their page or switch directions or whatever. Then all of a sudden it's like something completely different. And you're like, what happened here?
Yeah. Yep. Happens.
So,
yeah, that thing should be a monster. It looks pretty wild. His front axle's just gnarly, like just the skid that's built into it and stuff. And it's a sick looking buggy. It's really cool.
Yeah, I've also noticed that, and I don't know how local they are because they didn't actually put where they're from, but there's another. Oh, I'm probably gonna have to pull it up so I don't butcher it. There's another RC tube chassis builder. Oh, and I'm gonna have to pull it up and see. Because I noticed them right before the event, and then one of the actual guys that I follow on Instagram, his rig is one of the ones that was featured on there. Twisted Tube RC.
Sounds kind of familiar.
But yeah, he makes some pretty nice looking chassis. So and then he integrates boat sides into his.
Oh, that's rad. That would look good.
So kind of like, yeah. So you don't have that that sharp drop off on the bottom,
right?
Kind of like the one behind me. So it's pretty cool. So yeah. So this is the guy's. Probably looks a little weird because it's on the desktop, but this is the guy's page. This rig right here, this one was actually there. I guess that's the guy, Gabe. Yeah, buddy. Because he was there with this rig. I got a couple shots of that at
that thing's sick
up at the event, but see, it's just a different
oh wow.
I guess it doesn't work. It works differently on your browser. But yeah, he
I like the
makes
colors he
some
chose
kind of
on that a lot.
so he just so he makes a lot of like these rigs are, you know, pretty badass, like just different. So, but yeah, I'm not 100% sure where he's out of because like normally like in your bio you'd have it just says designer and builder of RC tube chassis and that's it. So yeah, but anyways, so Dan just got
Stuff
one
looks
of
great.
his rigs. I think it's looks like this one. I'm trying to see if there's any pictures of just the rig where they're not like a video. I think almost everything he's posted is a video, or am I in the videos? No, I'm on the posts. Yeah, almost everything that he posts is a video. I don't think he's posted anything that's just like a still shot. But see, maybe you can see it in this video. See how he has like a little boat side.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of help you slide across rocks.
Right.
But yeah.
That's pretty rad.
Yeah. So guys, go give him a follow, check him out. Twisted Tube RC.
You got to pull up that Club 42 really quick and show that buggy chassis since you're able to do that while we're here. Because I really want to see an RC version of this rig because it is so rad.
What? No. Okay, I got to figure out. Isn't it Club 42?
Mm-hmm.
What's the rest of his?
Let me look.
Because it's like bringing up like half naked women.
That's definitely not it. One sec here. Sorry.
I think it's Club 42 Racing.
Yeah, probably. Yep.
Yeah,
Club
Dave
42
Wong.
Racing, all one word.
Yep.
Yeah, like third row down, I think is where it shows this new buggy. There it is.
This one?
Yeah.
Are you recording again?
Or
you never stop?
I never stopped.
Anyways. Yeah.
Dude, look at that thing. That is just evil. I love the wheels.
It's like it kind of gives me like almost like a warthog, Halo warthog kind of feel to it, mixed with
it's sleek looking, right?
Yeah.
Like it's very like, I don't know. If a tube chassis could look aerodynamic, like it kind of looks aerodynamic, like it kind of has this like swoop to it. Like it looks, I love the design of it. I mean, that cage is just wicked.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Does he only have the 2 pictures of it or whatever?
That's the only thing I see on there.
I can't wait to see if
everything else is the old
panels and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's not the same rig.
Yeah. His stuff always looks so clean.
But yep.
Yeah, I'd like to see more pictures of that because I think when it comes time for me to build one, that's definitely the one that I want to do. Just because it's so different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Better bust out the welder and or the get
propane
good with
torch or
yeah.
butane torch.
Yeah, with brazing.
Yeah, I want to.
There's
try
another
I
guy
would
on
rather do
Instagram. If you,
brazing.
I don't know if you follow him. Gills RC.
Sounds familiar too.
It might be Gills RC. That guy's doing like all he's got right now. His last like 6 posts have been all about like building bumpers or sliders or whatever. And he kind of like does like almost like a time lapse, like breaks it down to like a 45-second clip of like how he cuts, copes, and solders. And you're just like, wow, I can't believe you spend that kind of like, I mean, I'm kind of lazy and I'll bust out the Dremel or even like the grinder and I'll cut off pieces of tube and then I'll go back and fix it with the grinder. He gets a little hacksaw out and cuts every piece out with the hacksaw. Then he takes the round rasp and he sits there and copes the end of it. And it's like, it's mind blowing.
Yeah. I think, isn't that the guy I was talking to you about that I was like, will this work? You know, when I saw him soldering with brazing with a butane torch. I think that was the guy because
that might have been
his stuff was just beautiful. Like the tubes looked like they were used with a notcher. Like it looked so perfect, and it was all.
Oh yeah,
tubing
well
too.
it's a big difference. Like Like, I mean, on like this was all brazed, and like, I don't know if you see that. Like, I mean, just the way everything comes together, and it's not like all boogered, and it just flows. Like, that's the difference between brazing and
And that's
welding.
tubing or round stock on that one there?
All tubing.
Okay. That's so rad.
All
That is
tubing.
super cool.
All tubing. Yeah,
Well,
and then if it was more accessible, I'd grab my blazer down so you can see my booger welds.
Oh, it happens. I've made lots of those. It's fun.
So I
So
do got to say, one word of advice: if you do want to go the route of welding, I have learned. I don't know what it is, and I'm probably doing something wrong. But if you use stainless material, it welds like super clean. I don't know why it is. So like you can actually just do like a little tack, and it'll almost look like you're brazing because it's not like putting a lot of like a big puddle in there. I don't know what it is. I don't know why it reacts that way, but I get
my
cleaner welds.
metalworking table is stainless, and like every drop of slag or anything just adheres to it and sticks to it. Like
Yes.
it doesn't just hit and bounce off or anything. Stainless is weird that way. It's really crazy.
So
Well, should we jump into your event since we're kind of on the subject of WeROCK buggies anyways?
yeah. So this past weekend was the official comp number 1. I know we touched base on it the last episode we recorded with Elio, and we talked about it coming up. It is now since passed. We had a 17 driver saying that they were going to go on the flyer on Facebook, and there was like at least 30, if not 40 people there, because we had a total of like 41 rigs that actually showed up.
That's
so
awesome.
And I know a lot of us have so a lot of people had doubles. Some people even had like multiples, 3 and 4 rigs, but the average person had 1 to 2 rigs. And there were a lot of rigs, and it was a great turnout. The only bummer is the courses got kind of chewed up in between letting people actually compete and kind of like getting set up, and they got a little chewed up. So there was a lot of DNF, so a lot of people didn't finish. So Elio and Dan decided we're going to redo it. So
yeah,
the flyer's up now. It's a comp 1.5, the redo. It's going to be that. Well, it was funny because like I asked Elio, I go, so what do you want to call this? And I was like, this isn't the comp. It's like not comp number 2 because we never really got the first one, figured out. And he's like, just call it comp 1, the redo. And I'm like, no, we got to do something funny that like kind of like plays off of it. So I said 1.5. We're not quite there at the second one, and we didn't really finish the first one. So, but yeah, the event was awesome. It definitely shows you that I think this is a spark in the community that, or in the RC industry almost, that needs to be there, because it's, once again, it's like it is innovating. It's taking the like the performance comp build and also style of running the event, and it's mixing it with enough scale aspect that you're still like able to have fun, and you're like, oh, look at that, it looks super scale, it looks like a real buggy pulling off this line. So it's definitely something I think that needs to happen, and I think it's going to take off. It's just the thing that we have to do is I think more and more people have to just practice with their rigs, because we could tell the majority of the people there, this is like their first time competing with it, or the first time maybe even driving the rig, because they just weren't really fluid with the 4-wheel steer, or when to hit dig, where to put their tires, when to gas it, when to slow down. So yeah, I think it's going to take a little getting used to for some people, but once enough people start doing it, I think it's going to be great. So, nice. But yeah, it was a super fun event. Got to see a bunch of different people's rigs. I do got to say, I think the most popular chassis out there, if it wasn't a DMG, would have actually been the build along, Harley's build along. I can't tell you how many people had one of those rigs. It is crazy. Yeah. So there was actually this couple out there. They're on Instagram. It's his and hers RCs, or his and hers RC adventures, or something like that. And they had like 4. I think they had about a total of 4. She had one. The guy had like 2 or 3, and then they had like this like loner one that or I don't know, maybe it wasn't a loner, but they had a friend with them that was running one also. And it was just crazy to see, like, they're all pretty much set up the same. They just have different color schemes, and you could just see who's been driving it the longest, because there's like works differently, or they're just a little more fluid with it. Like, I've noticed that some people are still trying to use the DX5 to do the rear steer independent, but the problem is they're using the switch, or whatever button that they're choosing, the channel. They're using it as almost like a step, so they have to like kind of hold it, and you kind of watch the tires, and they're just like,
oh yeah,
and you're like, okay, that, like, I can see that, you know, some people still need to figure out the remote, like what remote to use. And then I once again, I wish I had it sitting here so I could talk about it. The remote I got for Michelle's dad was the Radiolink. I forget the number, but it's a Radiolink, and it's very similar to the MT4. It's got a potentiometer knob almost in the same location, but it's just a knob. So if you're good with 3D printer, or you can modify something, or you know how to build something, you can actually put like a knob or a thumb lever on it, and then you can actually move it just like you're running an MT4.
Really cool.
And
That'd
it's
be really
inexpensive.
cool.
You can get the remote with I think it's like a 3 or 4 channel receiver, shipped to your door on Amazon for like $70.
What? Really?
Mhm.
Wow. That is a really good deal.
And then one of the guys in the group, Don, he was telling us that it's super easy, if you know what you're doing, to modify or customize, whatever you want to call it, that remote. So I guess there's 2 parts. Maybe I'll use this as like a demo. So this is my MT4, but like on this part of the remote, there's like these 2 rubber plugs, and he says if you take them off, there's actually a spot you can put an actual toggle switch, and then inside there's a spot on the board where it tells you like, oh, if you want to solder it in here, it'll become what you can use it as a whatever style switch, and if you solder it here, it'll become a 3 position.
Really?
This one will be yeah. So he's like, you can actually you know, mod it out to the way you want it to be.
And that's the Radiolink, right?
That's the Radiolink.
Wow. That is really cool.
So
yeah, we need to like post a link or a picture of that thing up when we're done with this, because that's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be better than I'm not trying to like talk down on it, because I have seen it. The other popular, like I remember when right before I found that on eBay, I messaged West Desert Wheeler to see what he was using, because I know he recently was built, I think 2. I think he's got his Capra, and then I think he's got a UC Fab chassis. And he's got the independent rear steer. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to see what remote he's using. And he said, what was it? Drawing a blank now. I can't think of what's the other brand that everybody runs.
Fly Sky?
Fly Sky. Yeah, it was like a Fly Sky. I want to say like G55 or something like that. It's like it's a something like that. And so that one has a potentiometer knob, but it's all the way at the top, like up here.
Oh,
so
weird.
I've watched a couple of videos of guys who run it, and it's another one. It's inexpensive. It's like a $50 remote. The thing that's crazy is they got to hold the remote like this, and then they're like trying to like thumb their steer. I don't know. To me, it's just too.
I don't know. That'd be tough.
It's too cumbersome. I just don't. Yeah, I don't know. And then I've seen people that have made like 3D printed levers so you can like grab it while you're turning, and I don't know. It just still seemed too cumbersome for me. So I was like, there's got to be another way. And then, like I said, I found that one. But then Elio hit me up. I think it was just before Christmas, and he was like, dude, when you're building Monty's rig, you got to get him the Radiolink. I just picked one up. He goes, I think this is going to be the next one. And I said,
Okay.
really? And he goes, inexpensive, comes with a receiver, and he goes, it's got the potentiometer knob. I'm like, wow. Okay.
That would be super nice to have. I mean, after having something with rear steer, if you have a radio that's set up right switch wise, that would be game changing, I would think, because that's one of the things with mine that I don't hate about it, but I don't love either, is the spectrum. You know, you have like momentary and you have,
Well, yeah, that was like,
positions and stuff, and it's
yeah, that's
not
like
a lot of choices.
Yeah, that's like mine. Like I have the DX5C. Yeah, the
Yeah, that's the
DX5C,
radio I have. Yeah.
and that actually has built-in four-wheel steer, and I call that four-wheel steer for dummies, where it mixes it, so you can actually just hit the button and it'll go into whatever mode four-wheel steer you're doing. Like you can have the opposite, so you, or no, the same. No, the opposite. So like it do the tight turn, then you can do like the crab walk setting, or you can do only rear steer and then the front just stays straight, kind of like a forklift. Or you go back to normal. Which is, I guess that's good for like entry, like if you're just like getting into four-wheel steer, because it allows you to not really have to think about it. The only problem is you can't get into like the technical turns, because like I wish, like, because I did a lot of the, or not a lot, but I did like, I don't know, maybe about half, 65% of the judging on the first course. And watching some of these guys drive through there that knew how to drive with four-wheel steer, the way they knew when to come through the gate and then keep the front straight or turn up and then keep the rear turning the other way. Like when you can independently move it just like you would in a real buggy, you can just pull off crazier lines. You can get around things just, and it looks like it just, yeah, it's just mind blowing. Whereas when it's all, mixed together, you're really limited to what you're allowed to do, because like you could be turning into it like to do like a tight, turn, but then you're like, oh, I need to turn this way. But once you switch to that profile, now it screws up your front end. Then your front end's doing something you don't want it to do. Or
I
vice
didn't
versa.
I didn't really enjoy that. I had tried it and it was just like, it was just way too much movement happening at once with the front and the rear, like it was just like, yeah, you can turn super, super sharp, but you don't always need that. And like, it just, I don't know, having the separate potentiometer knob sounds like the only like really clean setup to do it with. So I didn't really care for having it mixed at all on mine.
Yeah, so I've seen people that unmix it, but see, that was the problem I had the very first time I ever set up four-wheel steer on my Capra. Was I didn't realize that it had a four-wheel steer setting, so I was trying to independently set it up, and for some reason I was having issues, and I know for a fact it was user error. What it was doing was, as soon as I had like my normal steering figured out, I try to set up my rear axle, and then it would screw up the front for some reason. I don't know if it was trying to automatically mix together or what the problem was. It was like once I started using the rear, I lost like part of my steering in the front, or it would like only go so far, or it was like super slow. Like it was like I couldn't figure out what was going on.
Weird.
I had to keep resetting the remote, and then that's when I discovered that it had four-wheel steer mode, you should say. And then I just set everything up through that, and then it's just been kind of dummy ever since.
Yeah. Well, that's a good cost-effective alternative to that Futaba. That's great.
So, yeah.
That should be helpful for people.
Yeah.
Well, should we go into Axial's latest release, which is really the only new release recently, other than what we talked about last time with Vanquish and stuff? But the AXP8 Helamon. Cool. So, anyways, it would have been nice to get Randall on here to talk about this thing, because he's pretty proud of the job that he did on this. I think the big surprise for everybody was the fact that this thing is a 2.2 rig. I don't think anybody really saw that coming.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that was pretty crazy too was to see that it went to 1/8.
Yeah. I mean, it looks neat. I like the design of it. The cutting brakes is wild. I think that's incredibly cool.
Yeah, and actually I'm wondering, like, at what point will they be able to bring that technology to 1/10 scale axles?
Well, someone said something about the XR10 used to have it, but it didn't work very good. Is that true?
That I don't know, because the XR10 was a platform that ironically I kind of wish that I got into, but at the time I only got into the SCX the SCX10. So that was it. Like I knew that the XR was a platform that was out, but I never got into it. And of course, we were actually just talking about this at the event. It was pretty funny. We were saying how when we first started getting into all this, that you had to do so much work to get a rig to work properly, and now look at what we're getting.
Yeah, it's crazy that you can get an RTR with something like this. We might as well show the video since we're here. You know, honestly, that kind of makes you want to go drive RC cars.
It does.
That's a pretty good video.
No, it's a very good video, and it's crazy because they had, I mean, obviously that had to be Utah.
Yeah.
I mean, so just some killer terrain, but
amazing terrain. God, it's just like you want to be there. It looks like so much fun.
But yeah, that cutting brake, I mean, it's crazy because when they first came, because I think I sent it to you. So I don't know who leaked it. I don't know like where it all started, but all of a sudden at one point I was getting messages from everybody. I was getting text, Facebook messages, like everything just going, "Did you see the new Axial rig?" And I'm like, "It gets released tomorrow. Like, what are you talking about?" And then they'd like send it, and it was weird because it was the first one that I saw was an actual, it was like a picture from the Axial website saying pre-order now. And it was weird because I said, oh, it's got to be like photoshopped or something, right? Because you go on Axial's website, it's not there. And then somebody actually found like that picture when they sent it had a link, and when you opened up the link, it actually had directed you to Axial's website, and it said pre-order, but as soon as you click pre-order, it said, "Sorry, you ventured off course. Please go back."
Yeah,
So,
I saw that. Yeah.
So it was kind of weird. So I don't know who leaked it, who screwed up, what happened, but
it was probably intentional if I had to guess.
Probably. But it was just interesting to see, and like everybody was talking about it. And I remember they had what was it? They called it ASD. Like that's what they were calling the cutting brake, I believe. I don't know. And I remember everyone kept asking, what the heck is ASD? And there's so many people making guesses of what it was going to be. They're like, oh, it's a gyro. So like if the rig starts tipping over, it'll like correct itself. And if it's and this, that, and the other. And then finally when they released it, it made sense. They called it axial selectable drive or something like that, or selectable drag or something. I don't know. And that's pretty much what it is. It's for the cutting brake. So yeah, it's pretty badass.
It's weird. The harshest criticism that I've seen over it was the fact that it was 8th scale, and people said that they didn't like the cage. They said it was ugly, which I thought was kind of really weird because I thought it looks pretty nice, actually.
Yeah, it's got to be one of the better. I mean, I think it's got to be one of the better looking 8th scale releases they've done.
Well, the only thing I got to say about the back is it is a little lackluster when you consider looking at how much detail and what they have at the front of the rig.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, like it's like I don't want to. I mean, like it's probably gonna be bad that I say this. It's almost like a reverse mullet. It's like you put all the party in the front, and then it kind of just got a little boring in the back. And you're just like, I mean, I'm not saying that it's horrible. I'm just saying it's just interesting because like you have, like for instance,
I can understand that.
The front shock hoops, they come up above the hood, and they got the and there's like a little detail in there, and then you got
which I like that. I think that's cool looking.
Yeah, and then you got the winch plate up front and the little bull bar and like everything kind of like I said, there's a lot of little, detail. And then all of a sudden you get to the back and it's just like, it's a triangle. It just comes down to a triangle and you're done.
Yeah.
So,
so this would what in real life, this would be what, a pro mod?
Yes.
So most likely it would be front engine.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what else they could have done back there. I mean, the real ones usually have the fuel cell kind of like either back there or down low, kind of like on the axle or near the axle.
Yeah. I do got to say, the one thing I like about this a lot too is I like the placement of the servo on the axle, and you don't have this crazy long tie rod to go from the
having it off to one side. And plus, for weight distribution purposes too, I'm trying to find a picture of it here. That's actually really smart if you think about it for weight distribution, because you've got your locker and your diff gear and everything here, so you've got all that mass there and then not a whole lot here. And if you were really, really trying to dial in performance on something, I mean, this is an incredibly smart design.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I like that a lot.
I really like this thing. I think it's cool, and it's not like half-assed. Like they didn't use just threaded shock bodies or something and take the collars and stuff off. They actually have like, smooth shock bodies so that it looks nice. I mean, the crazy part is this thing is probably the size of a Rift.
Yes.
I mean, that's big, big, big.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think this is ugly. It just looks like a very purpose-built rock buggy that you would see somewhere out on the trail. It's not too space age looking or anything like that. I think it's really realistic. It's not all, somebody didn't take it and just RC the shit out of it like they do with everything else and make it look like a spaceship.
Yeah.
Like the Capra. I'm sorry. The Capra is just kind of, I don't know. They're cool. They're neat, but man, it's one of those like spaceship looking rigs that I just never could get super into.
No, I get it. This kind of like morphs the OG Wraith with the Bomber.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have, so you kind of blend the two together. So you got your tuber rig mixed with like your race built, race car style build, and then just put them together.
I think part of what kind of gives it a bit of an odd look is that I don't think the little like stock livery, this is a weird, very strange criticism, but I don't think the livery they gave it makes a lot of sense for the way it's shaped. it looks a little too racy, a little too fast for something that like honestly like you would think would have that like that looks that is got a lot less going on. Maybe it's just the color.
Yeah, you know what's weird about the other one that you're talking about, the green one, is that it's like, I don't know, the picture that I saw, maybe it was just the lighting or whatever, but like the side panels look like they don't really match the roof. You know what I mean? Maybe it just looks a little yellow here instead of green like this, but like it just.
No, I think it's because that side panel has so much more white in it.
And it doesn't.
It's definitely the same green.
Flow, you know, like it's like these side stripes are kind of going up at a really sharp angle, like this back tube here, and then you've got the stuff here that's more like a straight stripe down the hood with like a small taper to it. So it's like
the colors, I think, are just catching some sun. But I think, but no, you're right. Like I feel like this is the kind of thing you would expect a much simpler panel, probably something more of like a bare metal look. Like if you did something like that on it, like it would look right at home. You know, because it kind of teeters between something that's like you could kind of believe was like a professional build and then something that was like garage build. Right. Like you see a lot of those light cages kind of have that shape. Because I agree with you what you're saying on like the spaceship thing. Like, no, like they should look a little crude.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like rock buggies are kind of square and, you know, well, that Club 42 one, I mean, really, that's the sleekest looking thing that I've seen that comes anywhere near the lines of something like a Capra. You know, like everything else is even this is very moon buggy-ish, you know, as far as the cage design.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean,
other than that, I think it looks great. I think that's like I'm finding I'm very good at finding a very odd criticisms.
Well, I mean, and for me, since like I'm so much into visual stuff and everything, like there's just so many things that I like about how they did like this, the way that the panel is here, the top tube on the door, that's like very realistic that you see on a lot of rigs. I like the fact that for like one of the first times ever, Axial got away from doing the triangular wedge roof line where it meets the windshield area. And it's actually straight across. They've always had like kind of a frowny looking V shape. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that was a good move here.
I love the front shock hoops. I think that looks amazing. I don't know. I have a really hard time faulting this thing other than the fact that it's just big, but I mean,
well, see, and then that was the thing that was very interesting. And it's like, and I'm not saying this to be, you know, I'm not saying this at all to be a hater, because like I like the rig. I just don't get the whole, like, where did the 1/8 scale, like that came out of like left field, similar to like when it came out with the Capra UTB 18. It's like
it's a Horizon thing. Like they either want really small rigs or they want giant stuff. Like Horizon is so weird about that.
And like I just can't, like that's the only thing I just can't understand is just like how come you decided to go, you know, 1/8. That's the only thing I just don't understand.
Well, especially when somebody releases like Vanquish, when they release the optic, I mean, this in 10th scale could have seriously gone after the optic.
But this isn't really, I don't think this is a release for current scale, like for current crawling enthusiasts. Like this is a new customer play. Yeah. It's the only reason why they'd go back into these other scales. Cause like, otherwise, like if you're just trying to do it for your core customer base, I wouldn't do anything but make 10 scale. So like, you know, I mean, they've not had it 8 scale
too. They make huge low C vehicles too, you know,
like, but I mean, what was that last 8 scale release prior to this? Was the Rift, right?
No, I think it was the
Rift was actually considered a 1/10.
I think it was the low C laser nut rig.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, it's been some time.
No. They released a bigger version of the laser nut rig.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because remember, we had the original one. Then they released one that's like an 8 scale version of it. That's just huge. Yeah.
Yeah. The funny thing is the Rift was actually considered 1/10 because they called that it basically their numbers always indicate like what scale it is. That was the RB. That was the RB10. So it was a 10th. Yeah, RBX10. It was a 10th scale rock bouncer. So,
God, that red livery looks good.
And I get it. This rig can almost go both ways, like you said, with the crude, kind of like just simple paneling, or like this, because this looks like something, especially that shot coming down like like Chocolate
This
Thunder
fits.
at
Yeah,
at King
that
of the
is an
Hammers.
aggressive photo right there. Like that is super aggressive. I love it, honestly. I think this is just super cool, and I hope that we get more stuff like this. But I'm also a dork for anything with a cage, whether it's a trophy truck or a rock bouncer.
Sure.
I just love caged vehicles.
So now my next question is, though, are we going to see a resurgence of 2.2 tires coming into the market? Because there's only so much 2.2 you can get right now.
Yeah. I do like the fact that there's some 2.2s that are coming out now that are smaller, like closer to the 5-inch size, which is cool. Speaking of tires, do you think it's kind of a weird choice to have Mickey's on this thing?
Yes and no. I mean, Mickey's been around forever. Like they're like one of the pioneers next to BF Goodrich. They're like, I think, one of the pioneers in any kind of like desert racing tire. So that's why I'm saying no. But yes, because it's just not a brand that, I don't know, in my opinion, is just not super popular right now.
This
So
thing with some KXs on it would have been sick.
Yes. That, or even just go with the standard, like what they've been doing. I mean, if you look at any buggy out there, they're either running the crawlers or they're running the Nitto trail grapplers. Those are like the two most popular tires in, the sport right now. Next to, well, I did forget about the
Treps.
The Treps.
Yeah. God, that's a great shot.
I think it's a great release.
Big giant portals.
Yep.
What do we got going on here?
It looks like a selectable
Dig
like
or 2-speed or
yeah.
Oh. Now I missed that.
Surprise for later.
Yeah, no kidding.
So we can bug Dan Sutherland. He's supposedly getting one.
It'll be good.
You can activate locking or constant 4-wheel drive function using a 5-position switch. You'll be able to configure the ASD system to drive freewheel or to
the
lock.
ASD, that's what it was. The axial selectable drive.
And underdrive the rear. And this thing's pretty sick.
It's really cool. And it looks pretty realistic too. I think that's neat. And they even, they even got the helmets right. I mean,
you know what? Actually, yeah. I mean, I think that in a, how do I want to put this? The non-family friendly way to put this would be that finally an 8-scale release that like we're not fucking around. Like, because I mean, I know it's been a long time, but just like, you put this thing next to like and I know different disciplines and all that shit, but like the Bomber I know is a replica, but then like the Yeti, all that stuff. I was just like, like those, they were fine.
they were still off though,
Yeah,
like,
and like they were just
the
really
drivers
big,
were
kind
too
of
small,
buggy
like,
vehicles.
like the
Not all
tires
shit
were,
made sense.
yeah. Tires are
So-
too big, the people were too little.
So I definitely think that all like considering where we're coming from here, especially, but like, I mean, it's really hard to find my one nitpick was that I don't like the livery they picked for the green one. I think it's busy for the panel space. Kind of hard to criticize anything else about it. I mean, like
I know, right?
I think it's just really good. And like, I mean, I like how it looks. I do see what you're saying about the back atom. I think it's hard because it's like, what do you do besides the fuel cell, maybe? But I also can appreciate not having stuff in the way to a certain extent.
That's
too.
true. That is kind of cool. They got the proportions so good on the driver and the tire ratio.
Yeah.
And, like the Rift had like 6.5-inch tall tires, and like the people, if you stood them up, were barely as tall as the tires. And it's like,
yeah,
really,
I've been waiting for a release like this where it's like I feel like I can really appreciate the accumulation of a lot of the small details, and I didn't expect to see that on an 8-scale rig, so that it's kind of a double whammy there, I guess. But no, I mean, I think this thing is actually pretty sick.
Yeah, you compare this to something back in the day, like I know it's not a crawler, but like the Yeti, and like the styling differences between.
It's just
the two,
that
like,
was
it's
the
come
standard
such a
for those
long ways.
releases. Yeah, it's just like that was the standard for those kinds of releases at the for the time, right? So it's like really cool for them to like, all right, cool, like let's just do a ton of net new features on this. Like, I love the axle design. I mean, that's a low hanging fruit win, but like, I mean that in terms of like good things to say about it. But I mean, it's a very thoughtful vehicle.
Yeah,
I like it a lot.
good job, Randall.
Yeah.
It looks great.
Now, what's interesting is I saw a post, and I think it was from Rich, and I thought he said something that Wyatt had a hand in this. So did he do anything with this before he left Axial?
That I don't know. Sorry, neck's bothering me.
Yeah, because I swore I saw a post and it said, I just want to, he goes, now this is something innovative, and I know a lot of people are gonna, talk down about it, and I've seen, hateful posts, but like they don't realize the amount of innovation and what's been done here. Well done, Randall, Wyatt, and Axial team. So I was like,
Oh wow. Nice.
So I wonder, because I mean, I don't think he's been with Axial for about what, 6 months now.
Yeah, I mean, this
if not
thing's
more.
probably been in development for a year or so at least.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
they
then, of
put
course,
some time in on this one.
And then of course we have I saw the I can't tell you how many times I saw when you decide to order an optic off of Temu.
People just like to say dumb shit.
Yeah, that's just some idiot trying to win the comments section is all that is. Like, that doesn't even like remotely make sense. But it's like, all right, buddy, whatever makes you feel cool and gets you a laugh reaction out of somebody, then sick.
Yeah.
Go after it. How funny. Yeah, that thing's pretty rad.
Well, it's also kind of like, like Travis said, like it's a really nice set of axles that they came up with. That I thought they did a good job with those 14 bolts for the rock bouncer, and it's kind of sad to see that. Are they just gonna like disappear? They're not gonna like try to shrink them down into 1/10 scale. They're just gonna, sail off into the sunset.
Yeah, hard to say. Well, we can take a very brief look at A main because there's not a whole lot new. So we'll do that really quick here. Looks like RC 4-wheel drive released a flatbed for the Phoenix, for the VS410 Phoenix. $200. I think that's probably made by CC Hand, if I had to guess then, because of the price. Their stuff is very expensive. K10 tailgate panel, that's pretty cool. Yeah, there's really not a whole lot. We don't really talk a lot about comp trucks necessarily, but OT6, the people behind Voodoo Tires, came out with a roller. I guess we can cover this really quick. Interesting that it's a roller and not a kit. There's another comp truck added to the party.
Roller is an odd choice. I agree.
Just kind of another carbon chassis truck. Sure, probably works pretty good.
Yeah, the only thing I can say about doing a roller these days is, especially in this market, if you're that guy who's like, yeah, I don't want to like necessarily build the rig, but I know what electronics I want to run, and I'm going to stay loyal to my brands or whatever you want to run. And I think that's why, because your average RTR, especially in this kind of like genre, if you're going for like like a ready to run comp truck, I mean, look at the SCX10 Pro. That was a kit, and you had to put all your own electronics in it, because people know that if they just put your standard 35 turn cheapy brushed motor with a basic ESC and a mediocre servo, everyone's going to rip it out.
Yeah. It's weird, they don't have a single shot of the transmission or anything in here. There's no body off pictures.
Huh.
Which I kind of don't understand why it comes with a body to begin with.
Does it?
Does it? I mean, I don't know what he's got on there. It's not like anything I've ever seen before, so I was assuming it's what comes with it.
Let's see. Yep, it does. Comes with a clear Lexan body. Comes with tires, aluminum wheels, pre-assembled shocks. Interesting. Yeah, there's what a scary segment to get into also, just because it is so saturated. I mean, not necessarily as far as manufacturers go producing like kits and RTRs and rollers, because I mean it's wild now that you can buy a roller, a kit, or an RTR.
I think I missed it first. This is a $500 roller though.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just wild that you have like that many choices for a comp truck, and then you throw all the aftermarket companies into the mix, where there's just like 50,000 dudes having chassis cut over in China that they're selling. So it's like, Jesus. I mean,
yeah,
it's such a gamble, and it gets to the point where it's like, how much innovation can you really have over everybody else that is producing the same thing? Like what the selling point's going to be, like the transmission and the axles, I think, is what a lot of that stuff's going to come down to for people now.
Yeah, well, the thing that's just kind of like funny about it is it's like you've already said, how many different ways could you chop up a carbon fiber chassis and put it together and say it's a different, this much better performing chassis than this chassis that's already out.
You could take a rail from every manufacturer and lay them on top of each other, and I bet you a vast majority of the holes are all going to line up. So I mean they're going to be different, but at the same time, it's like all these different shock position holes and stuff. I think you're not going to find a whole lot of differences between any of them.
Well, especially since like you really people don't like it because it gives the illusion that like you don't have all this freedom,
right?
The 90% of holes in these chassis don't get used, and that's probably still probably not true. It's like one or two, and then people don't really change it.
They'll lean the shocks down as far as they can because it'll give them the most amount of flex. And
nobody ever thinks
they'll never
about
use
that.
another hole ever again.
Well, because it's like most of the holes, the geometry is just not productive. Like no one ever wants to talk about that part. But that 500, this will be how I balance this episode, is that 500 for that roller is insane. I get that.
You think so with the aluminum axles and stuff? I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm definitely not like defending.
It's not that. It's not that it's like it's the
carbon fiber, bro.
I've just if you just go back and look at it, it's like you can drop $500 on that. It's not that it's like the sum of parts is not worth that. I'm not saying that at all, but it's just like, okay, cool. That body's immediately going to go away. Sorry, no one's keeping that. And then, wheels, tires, whatever, like look fine. It's like, but it's kind of just like a lot of really expensive parts put together on a carbon chassis. It's different when we were having the debate about like, we could understand the use case and getting what is it? They did like the RTR version, or was it even a roller for the Pro, the Axial, right? And that was a whole debate that we had where it was just like, well, why are you going to get a comp car thing and not build it?
Yeah.
Or it was just them offering it at all, I think. It's like, but that part I can kind of understand, because then like you're still kind of going to go through that whole process of doing the build and stuff like that. You're just not doing all the sourcing. I don't really see what I stand to benefit by spending all that money on a chassis that comes with like, I guess, some of these upgrades. It's like, I'd much rather just like buy a Pro and find my own aluminum axles I'd like to put under it. What, like, he's got brass in the axles. What's that about? Like, it's kind of stuff like that where it's just like, I don't really see the point of shelling all of that out, because those are like the easy parts. You know what I mean? Like that's really not the crux of the whole build. Just a personal thing, I guess. But
yeah,
I just have a tough time understanding who that's for, I guess, is my point.
It's a little more money than the other offerings out there, but I mean, aluminum wheels and aluminum axle housings, I think that may be the clincher for a lot of people. That and the name too. I mean, that brand has a pretty big following. So
sure, and their loyalists can pay that. That's fine.
Yeah, that was just interesting.
Well, like I just did a quick Google, like kind of like what you were saying. for instance, I know right off the top of my head, I know that Rock Pirates, which has another big following, they got the Kraken Pro chassis is $85 just for the carbon fiber.
Yeah, I mean that's
And
like
then,
let's be real, that's the bulk of the performance benefit, right? Like that's what we've all
and then,
been saying essentially.
and then you can get, you know, you can go get a set of Vanquish axles, because I guarantee those are gonna be the most popular as far as like full aluminum axle, which is actually funny. That is interesting to watch in the buggy scene, is seeing who runs the aluminum and who runs the plastic,
Really?
because there is a big difference when you see them sliding on the rocks.
Oh yeah, definitely. The super
So,
serious guys that are like want to win, or they running plastic axles.
yep.
Figured, yeah. I mean, I would for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean that.
I mean,
That's what I.
I
That
would,
I mean,
I would
I
never
am.
use.
That's
I would never use metal axles on a comp truck. It's like, I mean, I've driven with them and it's not great compared to plastic.
That is an excellent point that I overlooked at this too. Yeah.
I mean,
so.
that's personal preference. But again, it's like that's a feature though. You know, people bite onto that. It's like, oh, it's got
Yeah.
aluminum axles. Yeah, sick. I mean, that's like, you know how many posts I've seen in like the element groups and stuff where it's like, where can I get some aluminum axle housings for this thing? It's like the
No,
first
I get
thing
it.
that every
Like,
newbie wants is
no, I get it. It's shiny object syndrome. I mean, remember the
yeah.
first year we went at Axial Fest, and I was like super hyped on those on the whatever the boom axles were at the time, right?
Oh yeah,
You know, and it's
axles or whatever.
yeah, like I get it. Like I totally do. It's just that like I'm okay making that choice. I want to spend that kind of money.
Well, it's interesting because it's like some people think it's like a two-part. Some people, like, because Michelle's dad thought the same thing. He's like, oh, so I'm putting aluminum axles on this thing, right? And I'm like, not if you want it to perform.
Sure.
I was like, you can get, I said,
I don't think that's a controversial opinion. It's like,
yeah, like I'm like, if you know, if you ever look at, like, okay, look at the very first set of axles that Vanquish came out with, the Rock Jocks. What did they put on the diff? You had a
Yeah.
Delrin skid for it because they knew that that thing would not slide over the rocks.
Yep.
So it's like, I don't know. Yeah, you get the strength out of the aluminum for sure, and also it's like the bling effect, but I don't know. That's why I'm a big fan of, I think, Vanquish, and I'm wondering, just like, because I know Axial now essentially did the same thing, and I don't know who came first. If the F10 portals came out first, or if the SCX10 Pro axles came out first. I don't know the timeline. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but they're both using a very similar, or I guess you could say the same method. They have a metal or brass sleeve that goes inside the plastic to create the weight and the strength, but it's all plastic, so you're not going to get hung up, you know, when you're using it. And
that's what you would want. Like if you truly know like what you're doing and stuff, that's the hot setup right there.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah. So it'd be interesting to see if that actually comes back, because this all comes full circle. When I was first getting into RC, when BPC came out with, or not just them, but multiple companies came out with the XR mod, their method was hog out the inside of the SCX10 axles, get rid of the webbing and stuff, and you can drop in whether it was stainless, brass, you know, just regular raw steel. They'd make they make an insert, and then it would have the XR style ends, so that way you can put the C's on it, and then that way you can just bolt it all up. And you were kind of creating, you know, you're getting more weight, but you're still running essentially a plastic axle.
Right.
And I just don't know, like, will we ever see that kind of come back? But I mean, all these manufacturers, their axles aren't that style anymore. I mean, like Axial, like even the SCX10, the AR44 axles, I don't see how you could actually machine and put in a metal, you know, brace for it, or internal, you know, metal piece.
So small already.
It's all exactly, and it's already molded into the plastic. So I mean, it'd be nice to see this kind of like come to light and then, you know, be like a new standard. But
I mean, selfishly, what I'd love somebody to do is to come up with, I mean, no one will ever do it because the money doesn't make sense on paper, but I would love for somebody to come out with aftermarket plastic axles that are like that, because I feel like that actually would be adopted, like you're talking about, that like have those kinds of options, you know, where you could integrate a little bit better. Because you get past the initial mold, it's like, okay, well then after that, I mean, it's pretty standard RC plastic. So I mean, that to me has way more appeal, and again would be a lot more accessible to people. You can still make them expensive, but like, you know, I keep like, to come back to this roller, even if it just had like basic plastic axles, that build becomes like, that offering becomes a lot more appealing to me if you can take the aluminum axles away and take $150 off the price.
Yeah.
exactly. Well, that's why, like, I think
And
right
it's like
now,
digestible.
and that's why and I think that's why now, I think Vanquish, the F10 portal has got to be one of the most, like, I guess, sought after setup, because you get it's all plastic, but you have the brass inserts on both sides, and now they make their own aluminum piece to do the servo on axle, and it hangs it behind the axle, and you can get all this, and it comes with all the parts, which is crazy, because even they even have beefier axle shafts, because these are 4mm, I think.
Oh wow.
Instead of the 3mm or whatever it is. So you actually have to use a I have mine sitting over there. I think it's a 8mm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's like what they did with the Baja Ray and the Rift and stuff. They have bigger wheel nuts.
Yes. So
that's pretty cool.
The hard part is when you're running SLWs. So that's why I was saying mine's sitting over there. I had to modify. I went and bought a 8mm nut driver, and I had to sit there, and I just kept spinning it on my flap wheel until I got it thin enough to where it would fit inside. Yep. But I mean, yeah, they already give you beefier parts, and it's not a bad kit. I think this whole thing, I mean, you can probably, if you still have A-Main pulled up, I want to say this front axle kit is like $80,
which is a steal for what you're getting.
So, and it's got some weight to it with all that.
139 for the front.
What was that?
139 for the front. Okay. 119 for the rear.
Okay, so I mean, you're like that price would get you just not. I don't even know if it would get you one aluminum housing, and you'd still have to get all the stuff for the interior, or the internals.
Yeah. That is a smoking good deal for these. Did you see, I think it was these axles, there was, because they've had other F10s in the past too, but somebody used the mock hydraulic steering setup off of the H10 axles and adapted it to these, which was way cool.
Which is, I think, something that someone needs to come out with, especially with the moon buggies taken off.
Yes.
So right now, the optic axle looks like the scaleless for this, but it's a straight axle. It's not a portal.
It's not portal.
So, which is like so weird to say, because like when portals first came out, I was so anti-portal, and I was like,
same here. I know. Now
unless you have,
rigs with them.
Yeah, unless you're having, unless you have a Unimog, or you're building some crazy performance built rig, you should not be putting, portals underneath your Blazer or your Bronco or, your Hilux, like that's just doesn't make sense for the scale world.
I'm gonna stand my ground on that. I think you're still right.
Yeah, well, yeah, but but it's just like now we're like praising, like, oh, look at this, and it's portal, and like it's just funny because
dude, I will be the first to admit that I am a huge sellout over portals.
Well, I'm not saying I'm a sellout, because I still to this day only have portals on my comp rigs or purpose-built rigs.
Yeah, me too. I mean, my moon buggy and then my Element Comp Fox, that comp truck has portals. But
so it's not like you're building some, like, you're not building the
Scout
Night Runner
with
body.
portals.
And you're putting portals underneath it, trying to make it look scale. So, yeah, but still, this price, you can't beat it. I mean, like I said, I think it's like 150-ish, 160-ish just for one aluminum housing from Vanquish. And that's just one housing. To get them both, I think you're paying about $300. And that's just the housings. And then you want to,
Yeah, 140 for just the aluminum F10 version. No guts.
And look at how much you're getting, the value there. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
So I think more companies, like Travis saying, more companies need to kind of like do this and start offering a completely, a kit, I guess you could say an axle kit that you could get and be ready to roll.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, someone just needs to go on like super deep on just that subject and offer some kick-ass things that you can plug in on a bunch of different rigs. Like I feel like that would be awesome, because
the Vanquish ones are kind of the closest I think we're gonna get to that. And probably right. SSDs aren't bad either, but you don't have the choices you do
right
with the Vanquish ones. This would be a rad axle on that pre-runner build that I did. That would look so good on that Toyota pre-runner.
Definitely.
I don't know. We've said it before, and I'll say it again. Vanquish is definitely on fire.
It's just
now.
We're just gonna end every show like this, I guess. just glazing Vanquish every time.
I know, right?
Hard to fault them. I mean, honestly, it's gonna keep coming back to.
They're doing everything right now.
Yeah, it's a combination. It's because it's listening to the fans. It's seeing what's going on.
It's also the advantage of being a small company without a bunch of other bullshit in the room. Like they're a good example of doing it right.
Yeah. You've got a couple people making decisions versus a team or a board.
Yeah, offsite doesn't understand.
Yeah, exactly. It would be really hard to work for some of these larger RC companies. And I think that goes back to what we were talking about on the last show, is why so many people are leaving and going to more boutique style brands, is because of
you don't see this in a lot of
about this.
100%. You don't see that in a lot of industries because it would just be seen as a very risky move. But it's like, I don't know, if you actually kind of want to produce something that you want to enjoy, like that's what you got to do. And especially too, because it's like everyone's just so much more bought in on what's going on.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, no, it's way cool. Well, that's probably a pretty good spot to leave off, I would think. I don't really have a whole lot else. Do you guys?
No, just all this talk and looking at all that makes me want to get this rig built like now. But
no, get on it. Hurry up.
Not gonna happen.
I want to see it finished.
So I know I want to see it finished too. So
no, it's gonna be cool. I'm glad you guys had the turnout you did. I'm glad that it's something that's blowing up and that there was a lot of newbies there and stuff. That the fact that there was a lot of new people that's
cool.
Huge, So at the same time, it's also like one of those handle with care situations, because your interactions with them is going to kind of shape their experience for comps down the road and stuff too. So it's tough. I definitely don't envy the position that like Elio and you were in, with having to enforce rules and tech inspection and stuff, man. It just, there's the people that get it and play along, and then there's the people that freak out over that stuff.
It's a great opportunity to set expectations early, right? Like, hey, like this is what these events look like, and this is how we have fun at them.
And like we're saying, we're not being total sticklers where we're like, like, oh my gosh, like, your driver's, not just sitting in there on the seat, or, oh, you don't have, a scale seat belt, or you don't have whatever. It's not like we're totally going crazy. It's just, hey, we want everyone to be minimum 7-pound rigs, all running scale tires. And
scale tires is huge. I would enforce the shit out of that if it was me.
And
that's like not even debatable.
And we would like to see a 3D interior, whether that's 3D printed, all one piece that you're, making work, or, like we're trying to get away from the 2D interior, even though some of these rigs, you got to remember, you're trying to cram 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like
Yeah.
getting all this stuff to work. It's tricky. So and
Those would be one of, I mean, even the plastic caged buggy that I did, that was one of the most challenging builds I've ever done when it came to use of space.
oh yeah.
I mean,
And
like making little Lexan plates to mount an ESC or a receiver to, because I mean, there's just, it's, you open it up and it's just all transmission inside. There's barely room for a battery or anything else. I mean, it's,
yeah.
those are difficult rigs to put together.
And that's what's funny, because like that's a learning curve for Michelle's dad, because he's like, so what batteries are we running in these? I said, we got to go buy batteries. We need like 850s or 650s. Like we got to have tiny little batteries. He's like, well, you can't run that long on this. I said, this is a purpose built rig. This isn't the rig that you're taking to go do Axial Fest.
Do you
or
guys
Yeah.
have a 10-minute time limit?
a 6 minute.
6 minute. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's got to last 6 minutes. That's it.
Yeah.
You know?
So 6 minutes, and we're doing 3 courses. So if you have 3 batteries, and they're actually fairly inexpensive. I was just actually on A-Main's website the other day looking. I want to say it's like anywhere from like 15 to like $20 for.
Dude, battery prices are so different now compared to like 15 years ago when Trav and I got into this. Like, it was just totally different. I mean, a lipo is well over $100. Like, it was crazy when that stuff first started coming out. So
Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, but yeah, you just get a couple of those ready to go. And that's what's funny too, is like, you know, you can actually have like a handful of these batteries, and you just or even like just 2 of them, and you just do your one run, go plug it in. By the time you're ready to do the next course, the thing will be fully charged. It's not like you're trying to charge a 5,000 milliamp battery and you got to sit there for an hour. It's going to be, you know, these batteries take like 20 minutes to charge.
yeah,
So,
and this isn't, like you were saying too, it's not a rig you're going to go and do like trail runs and stuff with. I mean, this is like something that at very most you would throw on your backpack and take with you to, you know, wherever your destination is with your other rig that you're taking. So, I mean, yeah, no, it's cool. It's crazy seeing people bite onto this versus other disciplines of RC. It's like, I mean, they're cool. Obviously, we think they're cool, but like, what is the appeal to these new hobbyists to get these goofy looking little moon buggies built and stuff? Like, what is it that has like sparked this interest in people's imaginations with them?
Like I said, I think it has to do with the fact that it's a performance rig, but you can still add a little scale flair to it, because like, and I don't want this to sound like, I don't know, hateful or negative towards anybody who does this, but like, I think right now we're oversaturated with that whole chop like 2 inches off of your body, slam it on a belly dragger. Like, I get it. Like, that's like, to some people, they love it. They think that's like the coolest thing. It's the best thing since sliced bread. But there's others that are just like, it's kind of goofy looking. And it's like, at that point, you're back to like just running, you know, these comp crawlers, like, you know, like your Berg or like the original, like the XR10, like, there's nothing.
Yeah, it looks just like it. I mean, it's just, it's what has happened to every single discipline of RC that there is. Like, I mean, most recently we saw it with drag racing, where it started off scale, and then by the end, everybody's got Shark RC bodies that look like spaceships and carbon chassis. And, you know, I mean, people RC the shit out of this stuff. And, you know, it started off with like Sorka comps and everything, and then all of a sudden everybody started going crazy and building comp crawlers again. And that's like what's huge. And it's tough because whatever reason, that's what is appealing to the newbies. You know, it's like, I just got this truck, what LCG chassis do I get for it, blah blah blah. And that's like the first things that they're asking is for what chassis and brass did they put on it. And it's disappointing for people like us, because like for me, I really hope that the draw for the WeROCK stuff is the fact that it's scale. You know, like, I hope that is like the big clincher for everybody. Like, the reason that is pulling people is because it's realistic looking and it's cool and there's a driver and, you know, it looks like a real rig. And, you know, I hope that's the case, because the whole comp truck trend thing and everything, I just can't get behind. And it's like, I don't get that excited over all these different chassis and comp truck releases, because it's like, how many times are you going to try and reinvent the wheel? You know what I mean? It's like everything they're doing has been done before. So it just, I don't know. It's not very exciting to me, and like to see like to hear you talk about your comp and the amount of rigs and how scaled out they were, and then to see like the 8th scale axial that just came out. I mean, I hope that we're gonna see a trend of keeping things more scale realistic, and we kind of, you know, maybe the comp thing will start to peter out like how drag racing did, you know, where like.
And I could definitely see that. I could see the comp side of this like petering out, because it's hard. Like, I mean, for myself, I've never been a big comp person. Like for me, like that's just never been my thing. But I like the style of the WeROCK rigs. I like, you know, like so if I want to run that, I'm gonna just have to adapt. So it's kind of funny because like this event, neither one of our rigs were done, but like I said, you know, Michelle's dad drove one of Dan's rigs, and the first thing he said too is he's like, I've never like driven under pressure like this before. And I said, there's really not a lot of pressure. It's just in the back of your mind. You got to know you have a time limit, and you're trying not to hit gates as you go through. And the cool thing is too is like Dan actually really, when he was judging, he's like he's also coaching you through what to do. Like he's seeing how your rig's performing, he's seeing what it's doing, and he's like kind of like, so if you listen to what he's saying, you'll actually like look like a way better driver than you probably would have been. And it's pretty funny because he coached Michelle's dad through the course, and he actually would have finished and wouldn't have timed out if he would have listened to when he told him to throttle. But I think he was just so nervous about like if he like overshot it and like launched it off like the rock and like smashed,
somebody
like,
else's rig and everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, but like he kept saying he's like damn it, Monty, I said pin it, and he's like, I just don't want to wreck it, and he's like yeah, but it was funny. But yeah, I mean, it was good. And even like when he was all done, the first thing Michelle's dad said to me was, he's like, man, he goes, I can't believe I drove it like that. And I said, I told you, I said, what it's going to come down to, as soon as I get your rig done, it's like anything else. You're going to have to go play with it, and you're going to have to go get used to it, because your rig is going to be so custom to like the way it's built, and it's going to be kind of like tailored to you, so to say. So now you need to learn how that thing runs. So that way, you know, you go out to one of these events, you're like, okay, I know that if I go and I put my right front tire on this, that it's going to articulate a certain way, and I know that if I turn, it's got enough to where I can get it off camber this much before it wants to teeter. And you just got to learn, you know, how tight of a turning radius yours can do, and this, that, and the other. So I mean, it's really cool. And I think that's the only other thing I got to say about this, which was kind of like a trip, because I've never ever built shocks like this. Diff oil and shocks and bleeding them. You think bleeding normal fluid is a pain in the ass?
Dude, that shit sucks. What diff fluid you put in it?
10K.
Yeah, that was probably miserable.
wow.
So
Have you ever seen a million weight diff oil before, Adam?
No, I've seen it online, but I actually haven't had it. But like, yeah, like this is the heaviest stuff. Like, honestly, I got 30 and 48 weight behind me is what I'm used to putting in all my shocks. I was gonna
say, it's like you've never had anything like that before.
and then like I'm just listening to what like Dan and Elio are saying, and well, it's funny because Dan actually said to use a different he recommended 2 different weights, but then Elio called me like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 weeks after Dan talked to us about what he put in his, and he's like, dude, I put this, and he goes, I think it slowed it down way better, and it like works way better. So he's like, I think that's the ticket. So
it's crazy.
Yeah, he was like, say use 10K, and I was like, oh,
that's so thick.
I probably could have got away. Yeah, I probably could have got away with just like a couple drops and just said screw it, and that's the end of it. But no, I filled it up just like we're doing normal shocks, and then I sat there slowly bleeding it out till I saw as much air as I could get out of it. But I mean, stuff's thick.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the million weight that I put in the diff of my drift car, like I'm not kidding, like you squeeze it out like toothpaste and like cut it with a knife and then like take this chunk and put it in. Dude, it's crazy.
We used to have to use stuff that thick when we were doing carpet racing for center diffs, because I mean, you like needed just a tiny bit of slip. And so we were ranging all the way from like 100K up to like a million, just depending on the vehicle and surface and stuff like that. But God, that shit was miserable anytime you had to get into it.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
let's put it this way. In case it didn't work, I bought an extra gear diff just because I didn't want to have to clean the shit out of it.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be so hard. Here,
That's
I'll
the
be
part that
right back.
really
Yeah, I thought this stuff was crazy because I was like, man, this stuff's coming out like honey, and you're just like, and you're like,
Mhm.
and I kept going, man. I said, is the shock full yet? And then as soon as you got the piston to go past the stuff, it would just like shoot in there. There'd be a big cave, and you're like, okay, now I got to fill it more.
Yeah.
Dude. Yeah.
That's 1 million. Like, it doesn't even want to. I mean, it's like putty. It's stuff's wild.
Yeah, I thought this stuff was wild, but and this could be a whole nother, we could, like I said, I don't want to be like make this like a long, like boring episode at the end. The stuff that I find very interesting about diff fluid is what everyone calls it, because it's like I learned that like the CST and the K are like somewhat relatable, I guess you could say. Like for instance, like the 10K could be like 100,000 CST or something like that. It's like weird. It's like because I had a hard time trying to figure out what I was supposed to get until I found
it's like two
well,
units of measuring for viscosity, right, Trav? Because like this is 1 million CST and it doesn't list a K, yet there are like other ones though that have like a K and the CST doesn't necessarily correspond. Am I getting that right?
Well, yeah. Well, because CST is kind of considered source of truth. So anything after that is kind of like a subjective brand layer, right?
okay.
Like, because you're going to have, I mean, it's always a little bit subjective, but like you're going to have like a 550 CST, right? Like you would see, I don't know if we ever got that with crawler kits, but like you would see this often in like racing kits, which in most brands would be equivalent to somewhere between like a 32.5 to a 37.5 weight, right? You know, kind of depending from there. I think the K thing is honestly just more semantics, where it's like I always understood 1K to be 1,000
1,000.
CST.
Right.
See,
Yeah.
and that's what got confused, or maybe it's just that's what got confusing, because
Maybe it's
like I
weight,
was looking for
weight
because
and
like
CST is the difference. Maybe that's what we're
That's
thinking
the
of.
one. Yeah,
All
that's the
three
one
of us
where it's
are-
a little weird.
We all just had a collective dumb moment.
Well, one weight is only used in America. So
Oh, really? I didn't know
yeah,
that.
like you'll see, yeah, because like that was the big transition going into the carpet racing. It's like, well, the Euros had already done this, so it's like everything's in CST because it's just a lot easier top to bottom, especially since you start getting into applications where you're cross pollinating them a little bit, like we are here. So like that's where it's like, but you can definitely have that vary from brand to brand of oil. But yeah, I always understood it because like, you know, 1,000, 3,000, 5,000, whatever. I just understood that to be the CST. So like I would put, so like as an example, 1,000 CST, like what you just put in there, would be like most brands be like 70 weight.
Well, see, this is what got confusing. So like, for instance, it's like, well, I guess that like this one, the same that I have, the factory team, the team associated, or this is all team associated. Yeah. Like right now I'm looking at it, 10,000 CST, they're actually calling it 10K, like what I have.
Yeah.
But there was a couple other ones where when I was looking at the weight and the CST didn't match. Like it said, like it had parentheses what it was equivalent to, and I'm like, that's when I got really confused. Like, okay, what's what? Because I don't.
Yeah.
This is a whole area. Like when you're a crawler, this is like This is like going to the authentic Mexican restaurant and not understanding what the hell's on the menu, and you're like trying to just order the most basic thing you've ever had in your life, and you're just like, I don't understand this.
That makes sense.
Dude, I remember when we were like really into racing and stuff, there was like all these different charts available comparing the different weights and CSTs and stuff, like all these cheat sheets. And I mean, it was like, I feel your pain. It was an ordeal, and it can be very, very confusing.
Yeah. Okay. So like, as an example, 70 weight factory team oil is 900 CST.
Okay.
So I'm just somewhat close in my conversion, but like, so it'd be more like, what did they say? 60, 70. So 80 weight would be 1K diff oil.
Didn't Jason used to tell us that like low C diff oil and AE stuff the numbers necessarily wouldn't correspond? Like you could buy,
I think that's
the same figures in both and it wouldn't.
That's what I was saying is it's
Yeah.
subjective for brand. So like when I switched from XT or from low C oils to XTR, I dropped everything down. No, I went up 2.5 weight across the board. So like I basically like, if I recall it correctly. So like if I was running 35 front rear 8 scale, for example, in low C, I was putting 37.5 front rear XTR. It just varies.
Yeah, I remember Jason talking about that, and he would like recommend something for like an 8 scale or a short course. This guy Jason that we used to race with, Travis and I learned a lot of stuff from him. And you'd go inside to buy the diff oil that he recommended for the track conditions that day or whatever, and they'd be out of it and would only have something in another brand, and then that wouldn't correspond to the weight that you needed in the low C brand. So I mean, it was like just kind of like just
a lot of that wasn't necessary.
Source of frustration.
A lot of that wasn't necessary. We could have gone in and bought the same, like
right
at the time. I mean, it really doesn't matter that much, like especially in our conditions. Like if you're going that heavy on oil, you're not going to notice the difference in 2.5 weight change, right? Like if we're because we're talking that's 25 CST, right? So it's like, in theory. So that's where it's like, or something like that. So that's where it's kind of like at a certain threshold, you're just really not going to notice. You're going to notice more what your temps were that day changing anything. If you're really like, you're going to draw kind of a false causality of like, if you change your shock oil, as an example, if you change your shock oil, you went down from 35 to let's say 30. But when you went to go drive, it was 30 degrees warmer that day, 20 degrees warmer that day. Like you're not going to learn anything of substance. The whole thing's just going to feel very different. And most of that would be attributable to like the combination of the temps and viscosity. So it's like it counteracts, but it's not like equal. And so that's where it's like with the crawling stuff, it's like I feel like that you can get away with like just sort of certain windows.
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, most people that are building crawler shocks are probably, when they're doing a shock rebuild, aren't getting all 4 consistent enough anyways to where they're all exactly the same, like unless you have one of those little like vacuum pump chambers for bleeding them and stuff, you're gonna get it close, but it's never gonna be exactly right.
You doing 1K in those shocks, it's like you really just want all 4 strokes to feel consistent.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's it.
The thing I do got to say though, after putting that stuff in the shocks, like there's a reason why these rigs need to be 7 pounds minimum, because
I bet.
Because you try to flex that thing out, if you're not holding down the other side, it's just going to lift the other side of the rig up.
Oh yeah.
But when you watch these work with this weight in there, when you have the proper weight down low, this thing, it's just the way it moves is just insane.
It's so cool.
So yeah,
suspension is fun. Like suspension is a super fun area to dive into.
I'd like to see that in action. If you could try and get a video of that or something at one of the next events.
Yeah. I'll do it.
I'd love to see that in motion.
I don't know if I would want to build a set of shocks the way that you did without one of those vacuum pump things.
It's not fun. I'll tell you that.
Dude, I cannot imagine trying to get the air out.
Yeah, how long did it take that you had to let them sit?
So I learned that it was easier. So after I did the first shock, what I ended up doing was because they're running in droop. So as I'd pull the piston to the bottom instead of just putting it on top and then working it through, I'd pull the piston to the bottom, fill it with oil, then let the piston go, and it would kind of just work its way up through there and kind of push a lot of the air out. And then I would start working it, and you'd kind of watch it kind of keep sucking the silicone down. And then I just top it off a little bit more, and then I'd work it a little bit more until I saw like there really wasn't a lot of like movement, and then I just kind of let it sit there until I kind of saw the bubbles kind of just disappear, and then I just put it together, and that was it.
It's weird listening to you talk about building shocks. It's tripping me out.
Yeah.
Like
Why?
you're just because you're like starting to like get into some of the like intricacies and stuff that is usually just what racers deal with, you know? And so now you're like in this kind of new area of like tuning and geeking out, and like you're gonna learn a lot. But I mean, it's just I don't know, it just trips me out because usually when I'm talking to you, it's like more superficial stuff, you know, like how something looks or tires or wheels, or you know, it's never like, you know, bleeding shocks or something. So it's
Well,
like,
I mean,
it's just
I'll be the
tricky
first to
hear.
admit, because like everything I've always built is just like a trail truck. So there's
Right,
like,
right, yeah, I
it's like
mean, why not?
it's
Yeah.
like F it. So it's like if I didn't get it, if I didn't get it bled out perfectly, it's like screw it.
I think it is. I mean, I got to wrap up here, but like the one last point I wanted to make was that I do think it is very funny for all the things that we care about, performance, things like that. Nobody respects suspension in RC. Like not especially in crawling and stuff like that. It's the craziest thing to me. I don't like it's not rocket science.
That and tires, man. Like people, especially like the element groups and stuff, people want to replace the shocks immediately, and they want to replace the tires immediately. And guys will buy like knockoff tires, and it's like, dude, the two most important things on your vehicle is your suspension and your tire selection. That is like the two areas that you don't skimp on, you know, like
Well,
that
maybe
makes
we
all
can-
the difference.
Maybe we can turn this into a little bit longer, better segment on another episode, because I do want to talk, but I won't do it tonight, about, I'm not saying it's a newly way of venting your tires, but I did a different way of venting Michelle's dad's wheels, and I'm pretty happy with it. So I'll talk about it later.
Yeah, that'll be cool. Definitely.
Yeah, we should definitely do an episode on shocks and tires.
Yeah.
I think that'd be
yeah,
fun.
just set up stuff that actually matters, you know, and maybe like get a couple rigs out and like show people on camera and stuff, you know what I mean? Like maybe we could even prepare like a couple videos on our phones and stuff and have them ready to use with the screen sharing on here, you know, just showing different things. So I don't know, it'd be kind of nice. Got a couple weeks to put something together and present it well to people. It'd be cool.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Well, guys, thank
Cool.
you. Great episode. It was fun to talk to you both again.
Yep.
Nice having you back, Trav.
Thank you.
And
Glad to be back.
thank you everybody for listening to us again. And we will catch you next time.
See you
Later.